Grateful to be here on the day before solstice, and I hope everyone is beginning to enjoy the energies of the sun. This is really the sun season, lots of fiery energy. The sun actually is going to be in the section of the sky called Mrigashira, and that is a nakshatra. It's a lunar mansion, also referred to as an asterism in astronomy. And Mrigashira means deer head. So today we're going to take a journey in nature and see what we find. So I'd like to invite you to find a comfortable position. Maybe you're laying down. It might be seated on a chair or on a mat. Make sure that you have a connection with the earth. And today's mudra is called the Adi Mudra, and it's a mudra to connect you with earth. You create two fists with the thumbs inside, and it brings a sense of safety and security. And you can rest the hands either on your thighs, or if you're close to the earth, on the earth, and just feel the luxury of that comfort that Adi Mudra brings. Close the eyes gently. And if you have any discomfort anywhere where you may feel like, oh, the body doesn't feel exactly right in this position, or something else might distract you, like your clothes might feel a little bulky or bunchy somewhere, or if you're laying on the floor, maybe there's a place that's not quite as comfortable and you would like a blanket under you or a soft pillow. Take a moment and let's get ourselves into that comfort where we can find some inner peace, bring ourselves out of our bodies and the outer world, and really feel the energetic connection through the Adi Mudra, connection to the earth, drawing the sun energy down through you to the earth, and releasing the earth's energy on the exhale back to the sun. Finding your natural breath. Sinking and melting into the surface of the earth and feeling the radiance of the sun above you. Begin to visualize yourself walking in a location in nature. It might be a park. It could be by a river or a lake or an ocean. Could be deep in a forest or a desert, a mountaintop. Find your way. Moving gently, step by step, softly, walking on the earth lightly, feeling the connection beneath your feet. The sun, the radiance on the crown of your head, the earth, the energy and security, a feeling of deep-rootedness, a sense of tranquility and space. Walking. Gazing around, looking above and below, left and right, taking moments to pause, moments to share the energy with your surroundings. Inhaling the energy from the earth and exhaling upward toward the sun to notice the radiance of the light energy and the warmth coming from above. Asking your eyes to drink in the beauty, asking your soul to connect with the energy of all that surrounds you. You come to a location that is beyond beautiful. The energy surrounds you like a blanket, and you feel called to sit and share and be present in the moment. Breathing in the energy from the earth, exhaling it toward the sun, and feeling the radiance of the light and warmth on the crown of your head from the sun above. You notice the energy shifting as if you're no longer alone. You look to the right and notice a family, a herd of deer, grazing quietly. And you realize they've been there all along. In one way, they've welcomed you. In another way, they just now showed you their energy. You're careful not to move suddenly, taking your time, breathing quietly. And you notice a young deer, a fawn. Only one in the herd of adults. The beams of sunlight filtered through the leaves above glisten on the fawn's coat, illuminating spots and colors. There's a radiance. The herd is tranquil, content to graze. And the fawn notices you, maybe felt the energy of you observing, watching. And you look into each other's eyes. Your breath is quiet. You remain still. And you recognize the fawn has no fear. There's a curiosity that you notice beginning in the fawn's eyes. You recognize that, and very slowly, the fawn begins to step forward. One step at a time. Each tiny hoof barely making a sound. The rest of the herd continues to graze undisturbed as the fawn moves stealthily, carefully, and with curiosity toward you. One step at a time. You begin to breathe with the rhythm of the fawn's footsteps. Inhaling, a step. Exhaling, a step. The fawn closes the distance, coming closer and closer. A few more steps, and the thought occurs to you, you might be able to reach out and touch the fawn. And you decide to remain still. Looking deep into this baby's eyes. Breathing. And with a little rustle, and not quite so graceful, the fawn lays down right next to you. And you notice that the doe has risen her head, now alert to your presence. You continue to breathe and remain still. Your heart opens radiant as the fawn gently pushes its little body against your hip, getting close. And the doe still watches you. Inhale and exhale. And you notice that you and the fawn are breathing in complete harmony. Inhale and exhale. Full awareness on the fawn sleeping next to you. Breathing in harmony. You feel a warm breath on your face, and with delicate and slow movement, you turn your head to look up into the eyes of the doe. She bows her head toward the fawn and gives it a gentle nudge, scrambles to its feet to stand next to her, both gazing at you, watching and observing. They turn and walk slowly away, comfortable with your presence. And when they get back to the rest of the herd, they all begin to move away. The fawn turns around one last time to gaze into your eyes. And then moves away with the rest of the herd. And you watch them leave. You get to your feet. Turn back the way you came. And begin to walk back. Aware of your breath, aware of your body moving in harmony with the energy of the earth and the sun, feeling nourished by your new relationship with the fawn and the doe. You continue until you get back to your room. And breathe. Inhale from the earth. Exhale toward the sun. And you gently begin to come back into your body, bringing it into gentle movements. Noticing the radiance in your heart. A new sensation in the soul. And a transformation in the mind. You open the Adi Mudra, fingers wide, gently sweeping them up overhead to bring the palms together. Deep inhale, and as you draw the palms to heart center, exhale. Opening the eyes and welcoming yourself back. Maybe you'd like to take a drink of water or another beverage you have handy. Bringing that energy of awareness and awakening to the inner body through the liquid. And just begin to spend a little time with your journal, maybe. Cataloging any experiences you had. And I'll turn it over now to Kristen for some messages about the energies. So thank you for sharing the Mrigashira meditation. Namaste.
Welcome back, everyone. Take a second to come back to the space that you're in. Take a couple deep cleansing breaths and let's settle in for some insights and messages of the new dawn. Trudy, once again, thank you for such a soft and lovely, very calm meditative space on this day. It's interesting that the energies really do feel very soft and very calm right now, but how that parallels, how it kind of contrasts to that fiery, active energy of the summer solstice, right? You know, the summer solstice is where we really are the most active with our projects and the things we want to do and the things we want to accomplish and everything that we want to come into full bloom that we were dreaming of and imagining, envisioning during the winter months, planting the seeds of during the spring months. And now we're really ready to put some action and bring all those things, you know, into fruition. So the energies do feel really calm and they do feel really peaceful. But yet I think that there is a really strong undercurrent of action below like the events of the world and in ourselves, you know, that are really trying to amp up this energy of coming in to our true selves. So the heat is on, I think, in a lot of ways. So be just kind of be the observer. Take some time to really observe deeply from that soul space of different things that are occurring for yourself and then in the world as well. Because ultimately, there are two great awakenings that are taking place simultaneously, and they go hand in hand. There is an awakening to the earthly events that are playing out on the world stage. There are people who are waking up to the events of the world. And then there's the awakening that we talk about here in this group of awakening to the remembrance of who we are as soul. So there's an outer awakening and there's an inner awakening occurring at the same time. And it doesn't really matter which comes first because, like I said, they're kind of both intertwined and they're both happening simultaneously. If you happen to be waking up to the shadow influence of the planet and just how deep and how broad the corruption and the manipulation is going on, and just like these old ways of doing things that don't work anymore. If you're waking up to the events of the world, that in turn will cause you to start asking the bigger questions of, you know, well, who really am I? Who really are we? What is really the greater purpose of this life? So even though you may be waking up first to the outer world, it's going to lead you into an inner journey of self-discovery and ultimately a discovery of the soul. But if you're coming into the awakening first, the remembrance of your divinity and the voice of your soul, that sovereign place of divinity and truly being able to grasp, you know, who we really are as soul, as divine, free, sovereign beings, then that's going to lead you also to kind of start questioning what is really happening into the world and the deeper truths of that. Because coming from that sovereign place of soul, then you kind of look at the world like, wait, this doesn't match, you know, what's going on in the world, like what's happening on the world stage is in contrast to the discovery of who I am as soul. So they're both really necessary and they're both intertwined. Now, to achieve new earth existence, right, we must reclaim that sovereignty of our very nature of soul, and then create a planet of systems and structures and ways of being, ways of doing things that support that heart-centered humanity, right? So they're both, and they're it's a combination of both of those two awakenings. But there's no other way. There's really truly no other way to make that soul connection, to awaken to the divinity of who we are as the embodiment of source, than to go silent. There's no other way. The only way you'll hear your inner guidance and the truth of who you are is to stop listening to everything else, including your own thoughts. I recently came across these really beautiful words that were written by Marie Louise Van Franz, and I want to share these words with you now. Following your own star means isolation, not knowing where to go, having to find out a completely new way of yourself instead of just going on the trodden path everybody else runs along. That's why there's always been a tendency in humans to project the uniqueness and the greatness of their own inner self onto outer personalities and become the servants, admirers, and imitators of outer personalities. It is much easier to admire a great personality and become a pupil or follower of a guru or a religious prophet or an admirer of a big official personality. That is much easier than following your own star. No truer words have ever been written. It is so much easier to imitate and mimic all the other personalities and all the other humans like on the planet, right? We have become so separated from our own star, which is the birthplace of our soul. I was listening to an amazing YouTube video this past week. And this gentleman, he had so many wonderful nuggets of truth to share. But some of what he talked about was around this idea that awakening of consciousness is not a grand event. So if you are in the mindset, or if you have an expectation of, that you're going to have this awakening of your consciousness, like this epiphany and this euphoric state of ecstasy, maybe like, rolling on the earth or leaping through the stars, but if you're expecting to have this really, really grand kind of full body like experience, then you're likely to be very, very disappointed. Because awakening to your consciousness is very, very soft, gentle, subtle, yet profound, deep remembering of who you really are. And who you are is that which has always been there. Because as humans, we are always shifting. We are always changing. In our mind, we're always thinking and believing and seeing who we are, or who we think we should be, or who we want to be. We're always thinking, we're always changing that, always, and in every situation, in every moment. And I was just thinking about, like, for example, I know this a young couple who they were married, a handful of years back, and they weren't going to have any children. They didn't want to have, any children. They had made that decision and were pretty adamant with that decision. Well, you know what? Just last week, they had their first baby, right? Because like who we think we are, what we think we're going to be doing, like all those expectations that we have of ourselves, they're always shifting and they're always changing. But the soul and the true essence of who we really are is absolute. It's not in the mind or in the emotion. In fact, it's the absence of thinking, feeling, believing. It is the truth. It is constant, stable, complete, whole. It is content, and it is free. It is that steady, peaceful energy of who we really are. It does not belong or cannot be manipulated or changed. It doesn't belong to dreams, desires, expectations. And if we pause to reflect on how we as human and the world we live in is in that constant state of change, if we can reflect real quickly and kind of look at like how everything and everyone, including ourselves, is always in that state of change. Even if, we have something like, what, I love chocolate cake. I will always love chocolate cake. You know what? Likely there's going to be some experience in your life where at one time you go to have a piece of chocolate cake and you're kind of like, nah, I mean, it's just nothing is absolute in the world. The only thing that is absolute is the essence of our being and the essence of our soul. So if we can somehow come into the knowing that in order to witness change, anything that is shifting and changing, if we can observe that something is changing, then the place that we are witnessing that from needs to come from a place that is unchanging. Does that make sense? It's like you can't witness a change unless you're coming from a place of observation that is unchanging. That unchanging space is your higher self. It's a place of neutrality. It's a place of pure peace. So observe your thoughts, your emotions, your choices, your feelings. Be the observer rather than believing your thoughts, your choices, rather than attaching to it. Just stay in that neutral space of unattachment and merely allow the life experience to flow around you and through you. Don't ignore them, right? If we have if we see something in a particular way, if we're making a choice in a particular, if we're having a feeling or emotion that is particular, it's not necessarily being in the absence of it, but it's being in the disattachment of it. So stay in that neutral place, like just of the observer, because that is where your grounded truth and your peace resides from. So it is our true being, our soul essence, that has always existed, right? It has just always been there, well before that you came into human form of it. It's always been. It just is. So our soul essence and this beingness of it, it cannot be created. It cannot be developed. It cannot be designed. It cannot be manipulated into form. It cannot even be ascended to, because you already are. You already are the ascended. You already are. You cannot raise your vibration to meet it, although coming into it will raise your vibration. It's something that is simply discovered, recognized, remembered, and understood from the soul rather than the compartments of your mind. Discovering your true self does not require consuming a mass amount of knowledge. There are not a lot of things you can actually do to obtain it. It's being conscious of your consciousness. It's not being conscious of what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're seeing. It's being conscious of where you're thinking, feeling, and seeing from. It's not felt through triggers and the highs and lows of emotions, but in the silence of your heart. It's pure, it's natural, it's innate. It's not subject to debate, argument, doubt, or question. It is unchangeable and it never wavers. It's found by tuning in, by tuning out the voices of the outer chatter, including your own. You hear who you are when you stop listening. We spend our whole life searching, seeking, studying, following the instructions of others to simply come to be what is already there, what always was, what always is. It's more a process of peeling off the layers of that we put on on ourselves. It's peeling up all those external layers only to reveal what has already been. So we're not finding something new, we're not creating something new. We're peeling back everything else so that we can reveal what is and always has been. And it is the steadfast, safe haven of soul, our connection to the master creator, our connection to the universe, our connection to our source, that is needed now to navigate through the days ahead as this old earth fades away. It is the calm and the chaos that cannot be disturbed. So as the outer world continues to kind of spiral in chaos and in confusion and in conflict, this inner calm, the soul being of who you are, cannot be disturbed. So it's really important to spend more and more time connected to that inner place of knowing, connected to that inner deep peace, connected to source through the embodiment of your soul. Staying in that connection is what is really needed to navigate the turbulent times that are upon us, because the old way earth can only dismantle by dismantling, right? You know, it's not necessarily going to be a smooth process. So we are being invited into stepping into this new earth existence in which we can finally live the embodiment of our whole truth, the totality of our soul, and harness all the gifts that come with that we are here to share to the world. We are being invited into that opportunity to live as divine sovereign free beings and on a planet that will support that. But we cannot do that. We cannot fully step into that place of soul with unhealed parts of ourselves. So the next days, weeks, months to come, they're going to be more difficult for those who are still attached to their expectation of who they are and who the world is. If we're more attached to the outer world rather than the inner world, those people are going to probably struggle more. They're going to experience more chaos, more conflict, more confusion, and they're going to struggle more because they're attached to something, one that is, always changing. They're attached to something that is like outside of themselves. They're attached to something that isn't the truth of who they are and who we all are as soul, as being. So take some time to take inventory of, where do you see yourself struggling? Where do you see yourself repeating old patterns and old ways of doing things? What is the struggle or the conflict in your life right now that you keep trying to address and trying to come to some kind of conclusion or trying to work through in an old way and in an old pattern? And just recognize that it's an opportunity. Any struggle that you're having, that you're re-experiencing, is an opportunity to actually break out of those old patterns and out of those old behaviors, so that it can no longer exist in the new paradigm, right? Like any unhealed parts of ourselves, any wounds, any struggles and conflict, they're not meant to go with us into the new paradigm, the new earth, the new dawn. So we need to break out of that conflict by doing it a new way, because the new earth is all about not doing things the old ways. It's ironic, though, that it's simply leading us back to that presence and that space. It's bringing us back to something that's really not new at all, the essence of our soul, which has always been. But awakening to the remembrance of that, it requires, in this experience of the human life we're having now, right? It requires new thinking, new beliefs, new choices, new approaches, new ways of being. We need to step out of the old patterns, the old beliefs, the old ways that we have been doing things, because they're not going to work anymore. They're going to keep us attached to those lower energies of the old earth, right? So take inventory of what your struggles are, what your conflicts are, and be really mindful of observing if you're trying to break out of them by doing things the way you've always done them before, because it's most likely time to try something new. I have one last quote that I want to share with you today that I just came across last night after I had finished all my notes for this session. And I love when source, I love when the universe just kind of confirms, gives you these kind of confirmations and these synchronicities. So this is a quote by Joe Dispenza, and he says this: "Awakening to the heart's intelligence is an unfolding, a remembering, and a process of discovery." Did we not just talk about that? It becomes a series of shifts that rewire the entire mind-body operating system, with the potential for awakening, freedom, and liberation from suffering and from our limiting thoughts, stories, and beliefs. The soul presence gives you that freedom, that liberation of suffering and struggles, because it's always constant, it's always peace, it always is. He goes on to say, research shows that the heart has more than 40,000 neurons that can sense, feel, learn, and remember, and that it is in constant communication with the brain. Heart intelligence is the flow of awareness, understanding, and intuition we experience when the mind and emotions are brought into coherent alignment with the heart. And that reminds me of something that I've shared many times before. And then the heart has all the capabilities and all the capacities and all the physical operations as the brain. But the brain has one job and one job only, and that is to think. The heart actually has the capacity to think and to feel, which makes choosing from the heart, living, being, experiencing from the heart, your true navigation, your true choice point, because it can think and feel. It has that soul connection that always knows what is right for you, which goes back to the first quote, that I read from Marie Louise, and that, stop looking outside of yourself to something to compare to, something to imitate, someone to be like, because you've forgotten to follow your own star. So I hope that you will continue this journey of awakening to the new dawn by living from your heart and knowing that in that space, all is well. Stay in that heart-centered space as the fiery activity that the summer solstice is fueling might erupt, right? So stay in that presence of peace, the unwavering and constant, stable, steadfast truth of who you really are. So thank you for joining us for this session of the New Dawn. Trudy, is there anything that you would like to say in closing for today?
Hi. I was just busy taking a lot of notes. I have a lot of processing to do. You brought up a lot of different images, especially related to the heart. So thank you. I appreciate it. It's always great to work together. And once again, we say it every time, but the meditation and your messages are always so aligned. And this time we'll share with people. You and I didn't even have time to talk about what we were going to do. We just came in this morning and said, hi, how are you doing? And started. So it was really a lovely session. I'd like everyone to know that this will be posted, and Kristen will also be posting it. I can't guarantee it'll be within the next day or so, but if you happen to be up at 4:13 in the morning, tomorrow morning, that is the actual moment of solstice. So you might want to enjoy that and get up and then go back to bed if that's what you do, but it'll be energetic. And Kristen and I will have more information on the YouTube description, her website and some information about her services for Soul Awakening. And I will have things out there having to do with my spiritual life coaching, which includes astrology and other things as well. And so I hope you take advantage of all those opportunities if you feel called to do so. So thank you very much for being here today. And thank you, Kristen, for a lovely session.
You are most welcome. It is always a joy and an honor to awaken to the new dawn with you and with all of you. So everyone have a blessed day. Enjoy the summer solstice, and we will see you all again soon.